The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Welcome to the Brandon Peters Show and the continued adventures of the summer of 93 at 30. It's a weekend by weekend look at the movies released during the summer of 1993. As always with me, he's here. He's behind the mic. It's the rap Scott Mendelson.
Always a pleasure. I have nothing clever to say this time.
That's okay. Neither did Coneheads. And
Touché.
writer for We Live Entertainment, Why So Blue Variety, and host of Out Now with Aaron and Abe. It's Aaron Neuwirth.
Hey, this is a huge week, Brandon, because I wrote this down. There's so many names. It's Big Emmett summer. It's Big Janet summer. It's Tone Loc summer. It's Big Petty summer. It's Big Billy summer again. It's the start of Big Sinbad summer. It's Big Dreyfus summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's Big Ferrer summer, and it's Big Rosie summer.
I had it as Summer O'Donnell.
There's so much happening. Oh my God, this is like, you thought some of these other episodes were going to be huge. This is a huge week.
It's the big one for the summer of 93 series.
For like a very random set of movies that we're going to talk about. It's a pretty big week.
It is. This week is these four films we're talking about. July 23 through 25 of 1993. That's the weekend we are discussing. One of the films did not come out this week, and we bumped it here just for balance. That's what we do.
I like that someone's going to write in like, why did you talk about this movie last week?
Doesn't come out this week. I will hit skip. Now they're on the next segment. I will come back to this when it appropriately releases.
The real TBPS fans are
right.
jumping.
They're going to make the chronological cut. That's what they're going to do.
This calendar, and I don't like it. Smash that subscribe button.
So, since this is dropping in late July, what did you like better, Barbie or Oppenheimer?
I like that Robert was a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, but that Barbie ended up blowing up like part of a small nation of Transformers. So, big twist on both of those movies.
I opt for Oppenheimer.
Oof.
Anyway,
out the chest by an Autobot just there.
Anyway, on to the news.
When I wake up, don't you know I'm gonna be the man who brings the news to you.
Well, I do not intend to resign. I told him that I would not resign. It's too important that I actually stay the course all the way.
On July 19th, President Bill Clinton fires FBI Director William S. Sessions.
Willie versus Willie.
Mm-hmm. Scott, you were protesting that, weren't you?
I don't remember why. Why was he fired? And I'll tell you why if I was protesting.
I don't know why he was fired.
Not fun enough.
Now I'm kind of curious. What was the guy's name again?
William S. Sessions.
From The Sessions? John Hawkes' character? That table man?
Scott's looking at. He's like, "Why did I protest this man?"
Well,
He was the first FBI director ever to be fired.
Oh,
but
history.
not the first to be dismissed by the president.
Way to get ahead.
No, he's not related to Jeff Sessions, who was the attorney general briefly under President Trump.
Okay. Interesting. So,
how do you have the light on everything but your face right now, Scott? I'm very curious about this.
I don't know.
For the YouTube users.
Effing around here.
All right. We'll move on to July 21st.
Because the light's like... fuck it. Anyway, it's fine.
You know who else said fuck it? Angela Kennedy, as she swam a world record 50-meter butterfly stroke in 26.93 seconds.
Okay.
Whoa, this gets brighter when you hold it. Whoa.
The lights...
Science is neat.
On July 22nd, the lights were very bright at New York Yankee Stadium as Don Mattingly hit his 200th
I gave you
home
that
run.
one.
Yeah. And
he was on a Simpsons episode.
Don Mattingly, yeah. July 23rd, Chris Boardman cycled a world record 1-hour distance of 52.27 kilometers. On that same day, a China Northwest Airlines BAE 146-300 crashes at Yintron, killing 55 people. As New York Yankee Mark Hutton is the first Australian pitcher to be a starter, and he beat the Angels 5-2.
Are those two items connected?
Same day.
Yeah, that's like the worst Cards Against Humanity option you could have put together.
Yeah.
It's funny because countless people died.
And then, oh gosh, here's a weird one. The next day, New York Met Vince Coleman injured 3 people when he threw a cherry bomb at Dodger fans.
It's not funny.
Don't do that.
Wow.
3 people. What an arm.
Yeah.
Smash that subscribe button.
Ding, 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 ding. All right. Since you're chuckling, we'll move on to the deaths of this week.
Because he's a pitcher, did his arm throwing the cherry bomb be registered as like a deadly weapon or something? Like some Con Air legal bullshit?
He's probably tossing out the dugout, trying to scare him or something, and it hit
They
people.
were scared.
He was trying to
Scared they were going to die.
Yeah. Huh?
He was trying to outdo Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. All right. So this week, passing away, E.T. producer Robert J. Glass, Czech film director Elmar Klos, jazz session pianist, and the arranger for Slip Sliding Away for Paul Simon, In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel, and Grover Washington Jr.'s Just the Two of Us, Richard T. passed away. And this was also the week that James Jordan, father of Michael Jordan, was found murdered.
Ooh.
So this was that way. I knew it was coming because it was not too long after the NBA Finals that year, and then he would probably announce his retirement. I don't think he announces his retirement by the end of this summer series, but it would be coming, and then
it's coming soon enough.
He would play baseball.
Speculation as to what's going on there. Which recorded this Air came out, by the way.
Yeah, the Air just came out. That
it's very effervescent and lively, Mr. Jordan.
Right.
He has that classic quote that's on his character poster. Here we go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here we go. Oh my. We have one birthday this week. Arissa Segal, the daughter of Steven Seagal and Kelly LeBrock.
They have a daughter together?
They have a kid? I didn't know Seagal had any children.
That's some weird science right there.
He reproduced.
Good.
That's the right one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Weird
science. Yeah. Ooh. Programmed her to like Steven Seagal. So
beyond the fact that she has famous parents, is she notable in any way? Is she also
she's kind of stayed out of the spotlight.
That was the only one, yeah.
Is she also a cop like her father in Louisiana?
Does she acknowledge her father now?
In the mean streets of Louisiana?
Hasn't he morphed into a Russian bad guy in a Steven Seagal movie?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah. He
had practice in Machete, and then he upgraded to real life.
Yeah. But, not quite as wild as that is Wilder Napalm, our first movie of the week. Was released later this summer, but we moved it here.
TriStar Pictures presents the story of a husband.
How is your dad?
Good. No excitement.
A wife.
Bring home the boots and helmet tonight.
And an old flame.
I told you married the wrong guy.
Where's Vida? Once you've had a clown, you never go back.
I'm fighting for you, baby! Wilder Napalm.
You have bad luck with fire, don't you?
Yes.
Rated PG-13.
The laughs are at your fingertips with pay-per-view.
Directed by Glenn Gordon Caron. Written by Vince Gilligan. Starring Deborah Winger, Dennis Quaid, Arliss Howard, Big Emmett Summer, and Emmett Walsh, Jim Varney. You know what I mean, Earl? Or not Earl. Is it Earl? Vern. No, I mean Vern. Mimi Lieber and Marvin J. McIntyre. It's about two brothers with the secret power of starting fires with their minds. They reunite after years apart, only to find conflict with their differing lifestyles. Blind Spot. Never seen it. Quirky movie. I didn't read the synopsis before I started it, and kind of a strange surprise. Scott, what did you think of Wilder Napalm?
It did nothing for me. very well acted, an interesting cast. It was a lot of fun to see Dennis Quaid in what I would argue is an against type role.
Very much, yeah.
But it's weird that there's been like 2 movies we've watched like in a month about with like weird issues with each other and with women. I guess Dead Ringers was all the rage several years later. Beyond that, I mean, it felt very cut and dry to me, I would argue. I mean, honestly, I didn't have a lot. It didn't do it. I'm at a loss for words because it really didn't do much. I enjoy seeing Dennis Quaid do that. I always like seeing Deborah Winger doing anything. She's gone for so long. They made a documentary out of it. And you can certainly see the potential in the writer, who of course would go on to work on the X-Files. And was he involved in the Final Destination series, or was that somebody else?
You mean Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad
not
and
well, he
Better
started on
Call
the X-Files,
Saul?
right?
Yeah.
Started
Yep.
on X-Files,
Yeah.
yes. It's nothing to do with Final Destination.
X-Files
Yes.
is Jeffrey Reddick.
Okay, apologies.
He was hired to write an X-Files thing that became Final Destination. Right. Yeah.
I'm so confused. But
Listen to
yeah,
Out Now with Aaron and Abe, where you can hear Aaron and I talk to him about that.
yeah, I think I listened to that episode.
Yep.
You talked to the writer of Part 3.
Yeah.
Well, part one.
Part 1.
Part 1, yeah.
And story by of part 2.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of felt empty to me. You know, they both can do fire, yay. Other than that, meh, it's no House of Cards.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So you're like Siskel and Ebert here, because I went back and I watched, I was trying to get there's not really a whole lot of tracking on like what people thought about this movie, but they said they liked the energy of the film, but found it only an exercise in style, stunts, and pyrotechnics. And Ebert said, is there a markdown of things being blown up so big? You just substitute for anything else happening? I was like, Jesus Christ. But I thought this was a fun little movie. I do agree with Quaid. He's very loose and crazy here. Like a lot of times, and I don't mean it as like a disservice to the guy, but he's kind of like we couldn't get Harrison Ford. Can we call Dennis Quaid? But I couldn't see Harrison Ford doing this type thing.
No, I can agree.
Yeah. So this is where he kind of stands out. Winger, yes, I can watch her do anything. I thought there's like, I don't think this is a great movie, but it had little pockets of it that were really good. Like I like the barbershop quartet, like firefighting guys, like when they're putting out the house and singing Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. That's a great moment. And they take us out at the end during Heat Wave. While they're like, I'll give you, Scott, that there's a lot of emptiness to this world. I did like what they were trying to build. This kind of visual, it's got a really nice visuals to it. But yeah, I don't know. I thought there's a part where Quaid takes her out golfing that I really thought was cool. Just kind of enjoyed their exchanges. There's some funny dialogue here where like where Winger's denying that she was going to do anything with Quaid. And he's like, we were gearing up for some world-class screwing. We were gearing up for something they haven't even come up with a word for yet. Trying to, hone in on that. But it's interesting. Like, it's a weird little concept that's tiny in essence, but it makes it kind of interesting to drive this movie and make the characters more weird and quirky. But I thought this was a fun little thing, a movie I'll probably not return to, but I kind of enjoyed my time here. Aaron, what'd you think of this one?
I think the issue is something that you left out because it's very notable. Arliss Howard doesn't really have much charisma, and he's the lead character.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We talked a lot about Dennis Quaid and Deborah Winger. The main guy in this movie you've not mentioned at all. And I think that's
true.
It's telling.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are two brothers. One of them's more big than the other, but you can get actors that can still play small and be effective. all of that said, I agree with you, Brandon. I do like this movie more than Scott. I can't say it's amazing.
No.
It's not like a music of chance or whatever that like caught me off guard as far as being like a weird little outlier. But it's also not. It's not as bad as like what was that Modine twin movie? Equinox.
Equinox, yeah.
Like which is similar, like as far as it has a clear aesthetic it's going for.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel engaging. I was engaged by this because I like the quirkiness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more you could have done within this world? Sure. But in a realm where I have 2 Firestarter movies that are bad, I'm happy to have one that's good. It's nice that they like took that concept of what if we had people that did fire, but like made it about like two like brothers that are rivals. That's interesting to me, and I can really feel the Gillian-ness of it.
Yeah.
I think it's better explored, honestly, in the movie Home Fries that he would direct later on with Luke Wilson and Jake Busey and Drew Barrymore.
I've actually never seen that.
And that movie, I haven't seen that in years. I can't go to bat and say it's a secret like success that you don't know about or anything. But I do recall liking that movie quite a bit, and I believe it has 2 thumbs up, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a movie where his energy, what Gilligan's bringing to like the writing and whatnot, it feels it's reflected on screen as far as having quirky characters and like strange going-ons inside of what on the outside seems like a rom-com, but is actually like weirder and more about like sibling rivalry and stuff like that. Like if you watch those movies back to back, you'd be like, oh, this is the same writer, clearly. Mm-hmm. So with this movie, yeah, it's certainly like exploring stuff with the nature of these brothers and what they do. It feels like all of it's like 2 notches away from being like a much better feature. But I can't deny that I was engaged by just seeing something that was different. Even saying the title Wilder Napalm is like, what's that about? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
It left me interested in the world that we were in compared to something like Equinox, which I mentioned, or House of Cards, like these other movies that have like ideas, but just don't leave me curious about it. Just make me more like, when are we getting out of here? This is like, I want to know more. Please give me more. And it doesn't quite give me all the what I want. Still have enough where I'm like, I like what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, production design, costuming, like it shoots things. There's like a photo booth scene that I really like how they put it. It's a really quick scene, but they put it together really niftily.
And Barney, like just the stuff in here.
I mean, Glenn Gordon Caron's bringing like a lot of his moonlighting type energy here to this that could have been better. This should have been a really good team up. And it's nice to see that Caron makes something that looks cinematic and not just, oh, this is definitely a TV director. It's definitely a step above that with things. But no, like I was trying. I guess I went hard because Scott sold it so low that I was like, wait a minute, there's some good stuff here. This is no House of Cards. Scott's movie of the summer.
Clearly, the line of
the
fire can go straight to hell.
Yeah. Yes. But no, it's definitely like, yeah, it's just a little quirky thing that when assigned for homework, I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of nifty. That's a nifty thing I never knew existed. Am I giving a high recommend? No. But it's just it's kind of funny that we don't know more that this existed. It feels like this is a movie that it kind of feels like a proto Brian Fuller project a bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
And yeah, like I looked for his name, it wasn't there anywhere. I'm like, okay, this is like that thing where you find out that, you watch Straight Time and then see that Michael Mann did some stuff on it. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it felt like a proto Mann movie. And that's what I think, but there's no, kind of feels like a TV series set around all this would probably make some sense. But this movie works too. But yeah, it's, if you're curious and look for something odd, like I would say give it a shot. I don't remember. I don't think it's very long either. But there's some.
It's 109.
Yeah, there's some nice moments to it. But yeah, there is something moving. Yeah, it's probably Arliss Howard could have made this much better. Who would play this that would be better? Cusack?
That's an interesting kind of energy. Like that's something I could see.
That's not competing, like doing the same thing, like trying to keep it straight and not trying to that gets like, tangled up in Quaid.
Like, believable as brothers, but it's like, I don't know, like a Buscemi like comes in here. Some like character actor that like can play it small, but still like you're like compelled by what he is and as a counter to Quaid.
Yeah.
Or you just like
Randy.
Treat will get all the other Harrison Ford.
Oh God, yeah. So yeah, I tries to. Yeah, I don't know who could do that. Yeah, he's a little. Yeah, he's too boring. Is what. Yeah, it doesn't call for. He needs to be somewhat. Wow. Is Thomas Jane old enough?
No.
No.
He's young at this point.
He's young at this point.
I can't, like, if there's a bigger budget associated with the movie, I wonder what other name they're at. Because I can't. I have nothing against Arliss Howard. He's done other things that I do think he's interesting in. He's great in Mank from a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But
remember Mank?
Yeah, Manx. It totally manked.
Everybody's making around.
But like, here's where I'm going with this. If in the bigger version of this movie, like Hanks, like could work in here, like as the counter to Quaid. It's a movie that does not exist, but like that's a sort of like everyman energy that you could get. That could maybe make this a little more interesting to some degree.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wait, are Howard and Winger are married, right?
Yes.
And she's got better chemistry with Quaid.
Well, they're playing it that way.
Right.
Also, the director I was looking up because he's done a few things, but he's mainly known for some TV stuff.
Yeah, he's created a lot of TV.
And he also he was involved in the Bull investigation on CBS with him and
okay.
Name and Alicia Duku. He's not on the good side of that situation.
Gotcha. Yeah,
not
I mean
stuff, but more for defending stuff, which is like, all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I mean, his big claim to fame, like he was, he made Moonlighting. That was
Moonlighting, and what's the other? He has
Moonlighting, Remington Steele, Medium. Yeah,
yeah,
that was his probably more. Yeah, yeah. So,
God, he's probably ridiculously wealthy.
Yeah.
When you make multiple seasons of network television that each runs for multiple seasons, you just rake in the dough.
I mean, he strained the Moonlighting. That was a tough show to keep going in production, but they got it. Kept it going. But yeah. But while we're on the topic of television, let's talk about the network ratings for this week in 1993. It's a soft one. It works.
Inspired by actual events, in 1985, a rookie cop went undercover to catch a serial killer.
I can do this. I can.
The closer she got, the more attracted she was. The deeper she dug, the more deadly she became.
Show me how you killed him.
Steven Weber, Helen Hunt, in the Company of Darkness, Tuesday.
So number 1, Roseanne took the throne. That's the prequel to
The Connors?
The Connors. So for the kids listening. Number 2, of course, The Partner, Home Improvement on ABC. And then 60 Minutes on CBS at number 3, Primetime Live on ABC at number 4, Coach on ABC at number 5, as is ABC's 2020 at number 6. Number 7, Murder, She Wrote on CBS. Now we have a TV movie for next spot. It is hang on, In the Company of Darkness, which is a new TV movie.
I am intrigued.
Starring Helen Hunt, Steven Weber, Jeff Fahey, Margaret Travolta. And it is about after young policewoman Gina Pulowski succeeds in handling a domestic fight particularly well, she's added to a small team of detectives assigned to a case of gruesome killings. She proves herself to be worthwhile reinforcement by tracking down the prime suspect, a disturbingly smart man named Kyle Timler. Much to the horror of her teammate and lover, Will McCade, Pulowski goes undercover to infiltrate Timler's life and trying to get as close to him as necessary to make him confess his crimes without even noticing it. A dangerous mission involving a process of growing identification with the killer, something that doesn't leave Pulowski unscathed. So that's In the Company of Darkness. I'm gonna guess Jeff Fahey. He plays or Timler. That's the Steven Weber plays the killer, not Jeff Fahey. Interesting. So I'll just suggest that. But that was number 8 that week. Number 9 was Dateline on NBC. Scott, do you remember this one? It's a rerun. Number 10 is the rerunning of the second part of The Thornbirds, the 1983 miniseries.
Were they literally celebrating its 10-year anniversary?
It looks like they were.
I think that was like the second or third most watched miniseries of all time.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest. It was up there with
behind Roots and North and South, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a Patrick Swayze starring lots of other people too, but
yeah.
Civil War thing. Before Ted Turner made it cool.
Right. Yeah, and this one, Thornbirds starred Richard Chamberlain, Rachel Ward, Christopher Plummer, Brett Cullen, Brian Brown, John Delancey, Barry Corbin, Barbara Stanwyck, Gene Simmons, Piper Laurie, lots of people in this.
I'll tell you, at my high school, everyone was going, "Holy shit! Did you watch the Thornbirds last night?"
That's
They're finally re-airing that thing.
Now I can see what my parents were always talking about.
Yeah. Aaron, did you know about the Thornbirds, or is this the first time you'd heard of it?
First time I've heard of it.
Okay.
I've heard of the Wild Thornberries.
Okay.
That's a spin-off.
Yeah. Yes. It's the kids' version.
I did they have like this because you're talking about like the second one or a follow-up to it or whatever?
No, it's
part 2 of them. There's a multi-part miniseries, so this was the second part.
So this is the second part. I do remember the third part, Rugrats Meet the Thornbirds.
There you go. Yes.
That was more violent than I was expecting, but it was still pretty good.
Pretty good.
Rest in peace, Spike.
Gotcha. So, all right.
Dog died. That's the joke.
Oh,
smash that subscribe button.
As we make another crude joke, we'll go to another stakeout. How's that, Scott? Is that good?
Why is there another steak? They already had a stakeout.
We're gonna do another one.
Why?
I like that. It's their first stakeout in 4 years.
Do you think like when they were talking like on the phone stuff about another stakeout, like you want to do we're thinking about doing another stakeout. Be like
That's
another
it?
movie, or the script you sent me.
The room of people sitting there were like, "We're gonna do another stakeout. I don't know what to call it. What that's it right there."
But worked for 48 hours.
Didn't it?
It did not.
Yeah. We really needed the third one so we could have like another stakeout.
Another Godfather.
Another
stakeout. Ellipsis again.
Oh, one more stakeout.
Richard Dreyfuss and Emilio Estevez are on another stakeout disguised as father and son.
Daddy, don't start with that.
And with their new partner, Rosie O'Donnell.
I can use some help up here, please.
Help your mother.
They're becoming the perfect family.
Did you know that you were illegitimate? Thank God.
Now, if they can just get their story straight.
This is my husband.
Chris!
Another stakeout.
I'm his son from his first marriage, but mom's dead.
Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, July 23rd.
Directed by John Badham, written by...
I'll always know what you stake out.
Well, nowadays it would be Stakeout Resurgence.
So. Yeah, Stakeout Legacy. That's what they do. So
Stakeout and the Big Balloon Adventure. Always on brand.
Written by Jim Coop, starring Richard Dreyfuss, Emilio Estevez, Summer O'Donnell, it's Rosie, Dennis Farina, Marcia Strassman, Kathy Moriarty, John Rubenstein, Miguel Ferrer, and Sharon Malhan. Two immature detectives are joined by a pesky assistant district attorney and staking out a lakeside home where a mafia trial witness is believed to be heading. All right, quick thoughts. First stakeout. Aaron.
On first stakeout?
First stakeout. Original stakeout.
Okay, so if I had seen these movies, it's in pieces. So I don't think I've ever seen them in full. And to the point where I didn't know what kind of movie it was exactly, as far as if it was a buddy action comedy or if it was like a parody. And I think it's because my mind has like meshed together both Stakeout and Loaded Weapon 1 because Emilio's in both of them.
Yeah.
So I think my mind has always considered it all to be like one giant spoof thing. So what I didn't realize is that that Stakeout is just a solid buddy cop comedy, similar to like Running Scared, where it's like, it's not Lethal Weapon, it's not like epic, however you want to phrase it. It's more like casual. It's like a casual buddy comedy.
I called it comedy suspense movies.
Sure.
Okay. So that's kind of a term. I was like, there's kind of comedy suspense because they're not like big action or anything, but
and it's not like 48 Hours where it's like genre defying or anything like that. It's just like it exists in like this pocket of, hey, these guys are popular, let's put them together. So like I watched Stakeout, which I enjoyed. I thought it was a solid movie. It has a good share of action, actually, which I was surprised about. I like the chemistry between Streisand, but between Dreyfus and Estevez. And like I was curious that Dreyfus like is very much like the lead and the driving force in that, including being the romantic lead in that movie.
Yeah.
where
Like
Estevez,
Emilio's he's the Glover of the group. That's the funniest thing.
Which is like, I guess that's interesting by default because you wouldn't necessarily expect that, to the point where they put Emilio in like, a silly mustache for the movie. And then this second movie is like, well, now we'll shave off the mustache.
Both of them, yeah.
But like that's something I didn't see coming. I didn't think that you'd think you'd emphasize the Brat Pack star and not necessarily Dreyfus, which makes me wonder either if that was his demand or just like that's what we're trying to go for because it's wild. Do you want just Stakeout or do you want
just Stakeout? Just Stakeout.
So yeah, I enjoyed it. For a movie that I either have not seen ever or haven't seen in many, many, many years, I enjoyed it.
All right, Scott, did you revisit it or?
I had seen it years and years and years and years and years ago. And it always felt to me like, okay, this film is why people were so knocked out by Lethal Weapon. And it's not necessarily a criticism, but it was, as Aaron said, it's a, comparatively smaller scale action buddy picture that isn't, Lethal Weapon. Watching it again, the same thing. It's a solid, well-made buddy picture. The romantic melodrama is convincing. I buy the fact that Richard Dreyfuss ends up with Madeleine Stowe, which is a testament to the movie, frankly. And it is violent when it needs to be, but it's not over the top. There's actually very little on-screen killing, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people
can understand why they would pivot to PG-13 for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's menace and there's beatings and there's threats of peril, but there's it's not a huge body count. It's another one of those movies where the big action finale is that the cop shoots the bad guy, and that by itself is a big deal because he's not the kind of cop that runs around killing people. And I'm sorry?
Eden Quinn.
Yeah. Who is suited, he's an R-rated villain in a PG. It's an R-rated movie, isn't it? Yeah.
The first ones are.
Yeah.
It's sort of the 48 Hours thing where you have these the heroes are somewhat lighter and joshier, but the villain's just a ruthless badass.
Like Jimmy Smits and Running Scared.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, to be fair, I like a lot more than this. But
really rocks. Like it's really good.
Yeah. That's one that I think is like this weird happy medium where, again, it's not huge like Lethal Weapon, but it feels pretty big for that point in time.
It's also really.
I mean, the elevator jump at the end is astonishing.
Yeah. It's a really good Chicago movie too. It's it's one of the best Chicago movies.
So. Yeah, I mean, I liked it then. I like it now. It's fine.
Yeah, no.
And again, pop culture wise, I think it's interesting artifact that happened to come out like a month before Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that is interesting. I like Aaron. Like I know I saw the second one, but I can't remember if I ever like saw the whole first one before. But watching it, I get a gush over Madeleine Stowe for 2 hours, and then it felt like, that's that screenplay where like the money saving tactic of keeping minimal places, but like really focusing on the dialogue to keep it going. It was like that. But I felt like it was one of the coolest things about the movie. And I mean, as a compliment, it feels like that movie that, like that theatrical movie that, I missed it, but you got it on a rental and it felt like a really good movie you rented. But if you saw it in the theater, it might not have been as good. I don't know. It's that movie you missed it at the theater, but you picked it up the week it came out at like Blockbuster or something, like it was on the new release thing. Oh yeah, that Stakeout movie. That's right. And you picked it up, and Dreyfuss and Estevez work well together.
It has rival cops. It has all the tropes.
Yeah.
The rival cop team with Forrest Whitaker and the other guy.
Yep.
Got an angry captain. It's so trope heavy. Like,
yes. Yeah, no, it's an enjoyable little movie. Like if you ever find it, seeing it, like it's currently not free, not part of any subscription service, but if it is, Stakeout, check it out. Watch it. It's rather long for what it is, but like it still works. And there's some good, like I say, comedy suspense that'll carry over to this film of like one guy's in a room watching the other and seeing all the stuff happen, and you're like, boom, boom, and you kind of you get this like comedic edge of your seat feeling about them getting caught. So now we move on to another Stakeout, which comes like,
why is there another Stakeout?
Many years later.
Had a Stakeout.
They did, but it was so fun they'd have another. They shot this movie January through April of '93, and then it's out in July. Which
first class.
Wow.
Can you imagine how the social media people would feel? Like the Stakeout stands be like, doomed. They're rushing it, but here we are. Aaron, how'd you feel about the second Stakeout?
Largely the same, which I was surprised by, but delightfully surprised by. Like neither of these are, going home, high acclaim and awards, but like they are entirely serviceable films. I continue to like the chemistry between these guys. I liked Rosie O'Donnell's energy in this movie. Like she's fun without being like it's obviously she's supposed to be like annoying in the same way like Joe Pesci's supposed to be annoying in Lethal Weapon, but like not in a way where you want less of them. They fit within this, situation that they've set up, which I appreciated. I'm always down for more of Dennis Farina. So, and especially him being irate. So yeah, give me that. That's fun. The movie has a surprisingly like huge explosion at the beginning, which got me up.
Yeah,
it is gigantic. Yeah, it is New Blood going. Big. Yeah.
So it's like, at first it convinced me, like, is this gonna be like a bigger action movie? And it's like, it's not really. Like that's really like their pinnacle of action. And then after they settle for, misunderstanding comedy for the rest of the movie.
That's where the profits of the first movie went.
Pretty much, right? It's like even the end, which they edited, like the end looks like clearly edited from whatever R rating they had. It's like it's a little bit too bloody, but if we move around some of these shots, PG-13.
Yeah.
But it's fine because again, I don't think that the tone of this movie doesn't suggest like you need adults to see this only. It's like it's a fun romp for what it's doing. It's weird. Like I get like Madeline Stowe was like busy like filming Bad Girls and stuff. Like I like that they didn't just like fridge her. I like that they tried to create a narrative around why she would, and which makes sense because they're on a stakeout. So why would she be like around often? Right. But I like the movie just doesn't like casually throw her away. I like that that's a part of the plot, that there's strife between these two people.
And they don't dump her and have him get with Rosie O'Donnell in the end.
He doesn't like find a new love interest.
Yeah.
They don't murder her and he has to find the fucking gangsters that got her or something. It's just like, no, they're having troubles. Also, we have a job to do. So it's like, that's fine for what it is. And yeah, they shave their mustaches. So, you got that going for you.
Gotcha, Scott.
Pretty much the same. I appreciated that Madeline Stowe was still around in a way that made sense. Although again, as if Madeline Stowe wants to marry you, you fucking marry her, you moron. But anyway, it was another movie that for an R-rated to a PG-13, yet I would argue it was more violent than the predecessor, in terms of on-screen body count and what have you. But it is a lighter tone in terms of, it's not as brutal and intense. It's more caper action, I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
The cast is really fun.
Yeah.
Dennis Farina is having a grand old time here. God, his name escapes me as I'm looking at the cast list to buy myself some time.
Miguel Ferrer.
Thank you, Miguel Ferrer, the late great
Miguel Ferrer.
And yes, it's he's wonderful as sort of the primary antagonist here, and to the point where I don't think Dreyfuss and Estevez are all that remarkable here, and that's not even so much a criticism. It's just whatever.
We've been there and done that, yeah.
Yeah, but the character actor supporting cast almost carries the show. I could give or take how Rosie O'Donnell is used here, but She is certainly in her element. This is the kind of stuff that she was very good at in the 90s. But do I think it's as good as the first one? No. But I don't think it's aggressively worse.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm like half a star under this.
Yeah.
Well, this is Summer O'Donnell. This is her coming off League of Their Own, cashing in and breaking out because she had Sleepless in Seattle. The next year she'd have Car 54 and the Flintstones, and then that classic Dan Aykroyd comedy Exit to Eden the following year.
No comment.
And these are John Badham movies, right? Like
both these two are John.
Of these. He came back. He's like, I haven't said my piece on Stakeout yet. I need to do another one.
Yeah, and with Rosie O'Donnell's character, that there's a thing I like about her is that like she has a competency in this movie. To the point of where her overconfidence dips into her inexperience, which gets her into trouble, and she's not treated as stupid. It's just like, oh, now she's finally out of her element. She was able to coast on something a certain way, and they let her take a shot rather than trying to over dramatize Estevez or Dreyfus so much. So they actually handle her quite well, and she mixes well. And as mentioned before, Farina's my favorite part of this movie. He's just so like, there's something like so normal funny about him that works. And one of my favorite, like another Stakeout, I'll never forget this movie because I didn't see it in the theater, but we rented it when it came out, watching with my parents, and my dad and I had like huge laughs when he like hurried up and ate the ice cream to have the ice cream sandwich and gave himself the headache, and that's hilarious. And I love them putting together the ice cream and the idea that both know something's going on and trying to, oh, this is a really good dessert. Yeah, I'll get you the recipe. And so that's some funny stuff right there.
It's just they have ice cream sandwiches and they just take off the top layer and it's like whatever, we made dessert.
Trying to do it like just
but
this movie.
Farina is great. The Farina is like the kind of guy who, if he gives you a look, it can be somehow both terrifying and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah,
I've always felt that this is a PG-13 movie, so it doesn't really apply, but nobody says the F word funnier than Dennis Farina.
Oh yeah,
no, he's good, and I feel like nobody figures this out or utilizes him in film like this. In this way till like Richie again in Snatch. Like
no, Get Shorty. Get Shorty.
Oh yeah. There's Get Shorty. Okay, yes, forgot about that one. I forgot about.
He's as was that Bones. But no, he is perfect. And I hear the fucking sun says the fucking smog is the reason the fucking sun says
yes
in fucking LA.
So there is the opening I forgot. I'm like, what I don't remember this movie getting this big with the action. Like it's huge, and then the overall story here is less personal than the first one. Like the first one, there's the Madeline Stowe character that gets Dreyfus involved, and it causes a thing with the partner relationship in his career. There's none of that here, and they try to. The Stowe stuff is kind of what they hope to hook us on with it, but it's more just procedural work, so there's less emotional stakes attached to the mission, that's fine. But I noticed that was a big drop between the first two. But they do have some funny stuff. The three have like fun together, and Emilia Estevez, nobody calls me Ed McMahon. That was a good one. And then they have a conversation about Ren and Stimpy, to which Dreyfus like, this is the end of Western civilization as we know. So
and it was.
The first one has that when they're doing like quoting things, and he says this was a boating accident, and then Breacher Driver's like, well, I don't know that one. That made me laugh. That was that's too stupid of a joke, but I'm still like,
right.
That got me. That's good.
No, it's a lot of fun. It didn't result, it didn't end up with another Stakeout the third.
Bring it back now.
Unless is Stake Land sort of a spinoff of Stakeout?
I mean, it's been wildly rumored.
Yes.
Okay. Stakeout, yeah.
Do it now. They're all alive.
Yes.
Put Dreyfus and Estevez together with O'Donnell.
There we go.
Bring back Ferrer. He survived the pool death.
He's I like about him. He's a super intense contrast to every person in this film.
Oh yeah, because he has a look. Like when I saw
his voice too.
When I saw the cast watch like going into this movie thinking, oh, so Dennis Farina's the bad guy. And he's not. He's just like the next door neighbor.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do enjoy this one quite a bit. And it was nice to go back and revisit this one. I hadn't seen it probably since back then, but parts of it stay with me. And I think I mixed in a couple like. Yeah, I did see Exit to Eden. I think I mixed in some thoughts with that because I thought the ice cream headache thing happened outside at like a pool party. Did not. But yeah,
I do. There's like an extended bit where Emilio's like tied to a chair and like his mouth is duct taped and everything.
Uh-huh.
And we haven't even mentioned Kathy Moriarty, who's like the witness they're trying to like flip. It's always interesting because she doesn't do a lot. Like she doesn't have a huge filmography, so it's like
it's weird. Like there's Raging Bull and then Finder and stuff. Like it's
it's red. It's like this in Casper,
mm-hmm.
and like among other. It's like okay, but like when he's all taped up and everything, I like the suspense it draws out of that as far as. Like to the point where he's almost executed by her on a dock. And it's like, oh, this is gonna keep going.
Yeah,
right?
Badham's really good at these suspense sequences he tosses here in the middle of these. Like definitely like the first one has a few of them, and I mean it's not like a lot of it's like, oh well, don't let Madeline Stowe catch you on the phone, or bugging the phone or whatever. And here is Emilio sneaking over and getting wet. Like it's classic, stakes building, screenwriting stuff. Here I like, but yeah, no, it's a solid movie. This is the solid 3-star pictures that they don't have to be the greatest thing in the world, and no, they're not awful because they're not like great. We can live by these. And like I said, both of these epitome of like great, missed it in the theater but got it to it first week of rentals. I really think so. So yeah. All right. Well, with no clever segue, we'll move on to Casey Kasem's top 40, the 10 for it.
Casey's biggest hits.
We have a new number 1 this week. Can't Help Falling in Love by UB40 from the film that we all loved, Sliver. Number 2, Weak by SWV. Who was cranking out hits. They'll appear in this 3 times in the summer with different songs, even hitting number 1 a couple times. Number 3 is Whoop. There it is by Tag Team. I will also say at some point here, Woot. There it is, charts close to the top 10, but not in there. I think it peaked at like 14, but that was a competition. Well, that was the original. People claim the original song. There was like a lawsuit or something about it that there was.
Of course,
there it is, and Whoop, there it is. So sticky situation. Number 4, That's the Way Love Goes. Janet stays right there. Knocking the Boots by H-Town does the same at number 5. Number 6, Show Me Love by Robin S. climbing up 1. Debuting in the top 10 at number 7. Slam! Da da da. Da, da, da. Yep. Onyx is here. Onyx, Sticky Fingers and the Boys at number 7. And number 8, I'll Never Get Over You Getting Over Me by Expose. Number 9, I'm staying there. I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles by Proclaimers. And number 10, falling 4 spots, Rod Stewart, Have I Told You Lately? All right, and now we will move on to Coneheads.
Paramount Pictures proudly announces a world event. The premiere of an epic motion picture. The arrival of a family unlike any you've ever known. Coneheads, coming to your neighborhood this summer. Starts Friday, July 23rd at theaters everywhere.
Directed by Steve Barron, who directed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Damn straight.
Love that.
He works.
He rocks. Written by Tom Davis, Dan Aykroyd, and Bonnie Turner. Starring Dan Aykroyd, Jane Curtin, Robert Knott, Michael Richards, Eddie Griffin, Sinbad, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Michael McKean, Drew Carey, Jason Alexander, Parker Posey, Joey Lauren Adams, Ellen DeGeneres, Jan Hooks, Chris Farley, Kevin Nealon, Julia Sweeney, Todd Sussman, Garrett Morris, Dave Thomas, Lorraine Newman, Tim Meadows, Tom Arnold, and John Lovitz. Aliens with conical crania crash land on Earth. So this one's definitely got greenlit.
That's the whole plot description.
Yeah, that was it. So this one obviously got greenlit and fast tracked with Wayne's World success. Like this should have came after Blues Brothers or something, but
just couldn't find the story that needed to be told.
I mean, what's a sketch we have that we know is like, let's get maybe Lauren was like, well, Dan has that Coneheads movie he's been wanting to, and people would just go see an SNL character now. So there you go. But I mean, what else? There was Wayne's World at the time. What else would they have made like of the current cast before
Ladies Man?
Know? No, Ladies Man wasn't yet.
That's later.
That's later.
Yeah.
Like the early 90s.
What could have been here? Like Myers had
Hans and Franz, right? That'd be the other thing.
There was a Hans and Franz movie that all I know is there's a story like Conan O'Brien, Kevin Nealon, David Spade, and I forget Schmeigel maybe got holed up in a hotel for like a weekend to try to crank out a movie script, and it just wasn't working out to do a Hans and Franz movie. There's the Church Lady. Make a movie off that. There's Michael Myers like for Klimt, the whatever what they call it talk, but nothing I think with Coffee Talk, yeah. With Lynn Richmond.
Him and Streisand just doing this movie.
Yes. But I'm trying to think of the characters, like where you go. I mean, I don't even think Farley had some of his signature ones at this point. So I guess this is where you go while you're waiting for Wayne's World 2 and to figure out other things. But here we are. So Scott, why did you find Coneheads to be, quote, a minute-to-minute laugh riot?
I didn't say that.
Oh.
I heard you say it.
I didn't say that.
Scott's quietly laughing, hiding the fact that he actually did right now. If you can't see this.
Lies! Don't look at me. It's not true.
All right. So Coneheads.
It's weird because, every once in a while, justifiably, you get, discourse articles about, why are there no Saturday Night Live movies anymore? And there's a multitude of reasons for that. But there are only about a dozen of them. And of those films, only Blues Brothers and Wayne's World are what I would consider, or what I would be considered to be absolute successes. The others were either slight underperformers or outright bombs, including this one, which, spoiler, made $22 million on a $33 budget. I think this one was probably greenlit after Wayne's World, partially because they figured, okay, it's an appealing concept to kids too, because they're goofy alien characters that have goofy alien adventures. It's not something that necessarily requires you to understand the SNL characters and the sketches. As far as, I mean, it's barely a comedy in terms of the screenplay. It's just a relatively boring, generic movie that's supposed to be funny because the characters participating in it look kind of weird and talk weird. The two things that I would find there, excuse me, I'm about to yawn. The three nice things I will say about the movie, and I forgot them already. No, the three nice things I will say about the movie is that it is fascinating to watch because it's got like every fucking Saturday Night Live cast member in the history of the universe.
It's populated by all the young current cast SNL, not the ones that were around with Coneheads, pretty much. Well,
past, present, and future.
Yeah.
The other thing is, and again, this was 30 years ago and this was no big deal, but again, it was nice to have a no big deal studio picture that takes such a hard line on immigrants are good, actually. That is refreshing, especially by today's standards. The other thing is, it was kind of neat seeing Chris Farley as like a puppy love interest where that fact isn't treated with mockery.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a sex symbol in this picture, but the idea of him being into the teenage daughter of the teenage daughter isn't in itself, haha, it's funny because it's Chris Farley and he's big and he's sloppy, whatever. He's a perfectly normal guy, and they have just a little bit of chemistry. Other than that, the movie's a waste of time. It's not particularly funny. It's not particularly clever. The cameos are only interesting in hindsight. I mean, I guess it might be better than some of the other SNL movies because it's not aggressively painful. That's another thing, is that, most of these movies weren't very good.
No.
Nobody fights for It's Pat or Night at the Roxbury. I mean, MacGruber has a fan base.
Roxbury's got
fans.
Well, they're wrong, but that's okay.
No, I wasn't saying they were right, but there is a...
Stuart Saves His Family is interesting because it's actually a halfway decent drama.
That's the damn one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
That
Which
happened.
is, I mean...
And It's Pat happened,
I'm not going to sit here and say it's good, but even when it came out in 1995, it's like, this is a film that takes self-help and therapy seriously in a way that shocked me.
Al Franken's like, he's there's something there he's trying for, but the movie itself can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I mean, Blues Brothers 2000 is terrible. I like Wayne's World 2, but it was not a success.
Yep.
I'm still not sure why, because I mean, most people liked the first one. I mean, I would argue that Addams Family Values was a Tomb Raider trap situation where the first Addams Family really wasn't very good, but it was a huge hit because of how it was promoted and the interest in the property. But people liked Wayne's World.
Wayne's World was a phenomenon. Queen, all that.
It was
stuff,
a monster hit, and it was pretty good.
Yeah,
and it's been a while, but I remember Wayne's World 2 being about as good.
Yeah, well, Wayne's World is probably the pinnacle, with Blues Brothers is the best of SNL movies, and Wayne's World 2 I would put above damn near every.
I mean, if I'm ranking these, it's Wayne's World 2, and maybe MacGruber, and then Blues Brothers, and then everything else.
Yeah.
And Coneheads is basically one of those everything else's.
Ooh. Aaron, what'd you laugh at Coneheads?
I mean, a lot, because I'm going to be far more charitable. I would say it's the best of the everything else, in a world where I mean, Blues Brothers is a legit classic, and legit great. I like Wayne's World. I'm not I didn't grow up with it in the same way that I think a lot of people around my age did. So it's just not as high for me, but I certainly like the movie. It's certainly obviously better than others just because of the writing being by default clever. And then MacGruber rocks. I mean, there's just end of period, end of sentence. So this one, it's it's ahead of a lot of the other ones because they're just complete junk. This is a kitchen sink movie. It's just shoving so much at you where good enough of it sticks for me compared to The Ladies Man or It's Pat, which are just these dreadful things that I'm oh boy, we saw the dailies and we said, yes, this is good and working, we should keep going. Coneheads, I think they're, in addition to having so many cast members of hey, it's that person doing that line and then they're gone, but at least that was funny, it also has an endearing quality to it that I quite enjoy. I like that there's something of an arc for Aykroyd as far as learning to love the planet he happened to crash upon. I think there's enough there that makes that work, given that it's about a family and that he learns to whatever. It's very slight, but I still think there's enough there. The thing I was surprised by revisiting this, because I've seen it plenty of times back in the day when it was on TV all the time or whatnot, Jane Curtin has nothing to do in this movie, which is
she was half of the team.
Half the team, and I'm they don't give her anything. That's kind of a shame because Jane Curtin is a funny lady. That's that's why does she have 3 scenes in Dan Aykroyd, but it's Dan Aykroyd who quite likes to be in control of things. I agree with you, Scott, about Chris Farley. I that's again, I think part of the quality of this movie. I think a lot of the other SNL movies tend to have a mean streak to them, or tend to have things where the characters are the butt of the jokes because something horrible happens to them, and that's not really the case in this movie. I like that it's a lot of situational based stuff as far as put this awkward person into this situation, but everyone likes the Coneheads. They're a liked family, mm-hmm. and they add to society, which makes it an interesting case for an immigrant study, especially nowadays. There's something a little subversive and progressive and ahead of its time about that. I can't go to bat and say Coneheads is just like, it's far ahead of its time, and we should be used as a symbol in the realm of cinema as what we should be striving for. But for a movie that has such low stakes as far as what it's trying to accomplish, I think there's a lot of personality going on there. And again, a likable movie goes a long way for me. If you don't laugh, you don't laugh. That's, whatever. I laughed, so like I can't be against that. Like it made me smile. And also, for a movie called Coneheads, that's this movie, it has a pretty solid stop motion creature fight in the end of it, where I'm like, this is pretty cool looking movie monster. That won me over. So I don't like hate this movie by any means. I'm not gonna go and say like, oh, SNL really lost its way after Coneheads, but I mean it's fine. Like it didn't just rub me the wrong way.
I didn't think it was like a chore or anything, but I was just like, I wasn't really laughing much. I do think my favorite thing.
It's also really short.
That helps. My favorite things about like the people that were making me get like Farley, Spade, and McKean were making me giggle quite a bit. They were all pretty good. Like Farley in a low key way compared to what people probably think of him. Like he had some shit where he was like in the cop car at the back, like making some, just his reactions were hilarious. Reminded me of like, oh my gosh, I used to love this guy. Doing so Spade's doing his thing, but man, Spade doing his thing is great. All the time, and McKean doing the stuff that it feels oddly like you could put this guy in a movie today and it worked just the same. Like that's bad.
It's his character.
For humanity that we could do that.
Oh, it's I say we regressed. Right. It used to be like here, and then
I do I like Sandler in his one little scene at the table. He was crushing it. And that's the thing. We're here to see Aykroyd and Curtin, but everybody else around them's way better.
There's some subtle stuff with Jason Alexander that I liked. When he's trying to keep his toupee, like his whole goal is keep the toupee on my head.
Right.
I keep doing stuff where it's like maybe gonna blow it off, and there's this little like physical stuff that I enjoy.
Yeah, I will say like Wayne's World propelled this into here, but had this waited like 2 months after this movie comes out, the X-Files premieres, and I can't wonder if having that be a part of the pop culture lexicon could have helped this movie modernize or better fit or do some better things if X-Files would have been around for a bit.
The only caveat I'll say is it took the X-Files a while to become a mainstream success.
True. But everybody knew what it was. Like everyone wasn't watching yet, but they kind of had an idea. So I have to wonder if that couldn't have helped somewhat.
They probably thought the way Fox did is like, oh, there's a surefire hit on Fridays in Fox this year. Bruce Campbell's Briscoe County Jr.
Right.
Part Bond, part Indiana Jones, 100% cool.
Right. It has a cool Red Hot Chili Pepper song in there, and there was. Did you notice when they were flying away or the space, they had a like very close to ripping off the Beetlejuice theme? There?
It's a movie that's like,
oh, like,
I hope it didn't do the score, but what if he did? That's the kind of vibe that I got from it a lot.
It was like, boom, 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 boom. I was like, oh, are they gonna do the slightly? But yeah, it is really weird. It goes to their home planet and like that CG or not CG, the claymation clay stop motion monster is something I didn't remember for this movie. And I was like, that's weird. It took this turn, but.
I always remember because I always remember Dave Thomas going, and it's like, okay, I guess we're gonna do a thing now.
I remember him handing Dave Thomas the condom and telling him it's gum. I remember that scene from this movie. But yeah, it's obviously too late, but I think Coneheads was still on people's minds there. They're like right at this time, because the 80s didn't really produce an SNL to rival the originals. There was the Lorne Michael absent years, the Piscopo years. There's the Eddie Murphy thing. Huh?
The best years, some call them.
The best years. But right then they were getting really hot with Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Spade, Sandler. They were starting to come in, and this was the time where you first heard, oh, it was better back in the 70s. It was better back then. Like, and I get so tired of the fucking argument with SNL that I even had a conversation with someone at work this week. It used to be better back. I'm like, you know what they said back in the 90s? That it was better in the 70s. You know what they said in the 00s? That it was better in the 90s. You know what they said in the 10s? That was better in the 00s. And then, well, it's just so political now. It has always been political. You're just on the other side of the making. Well, actually, SNL actually has done a very good job of balancing over the years. I'm surprised at how well they've done. They have let cast members play their hand a bit at certain times in the recent years in a defining way of making a statement, but like it's always like then went and joked about the other side a bunch. Like it has been fair game, like on everything. Like it's not.
Well, I think part of it is that they, during the quote unquote Trump years, I think they knew that's how you got social media attention. That's how you got, aggregation. And I do remember the first few shows after the 2020 election, there seemed to be a visible sigh of relief that they didn't have to carry that burden anymore.
Yeah.
And there were several shows that were not apolitical, but they were much more just, let's just do funny sketches.
Yeah.
We don't have to set the tone for the public debate and or a tone for possibly playing a part in the hell that we accidentally created kind of situation.
Gotcha. But yeah, no.
Yeah, the same way that, again, I always say about The Simpsons is like, is The Simpsons as good as it was in, season 6? No. Is it, making an impact in the pop culture the way it did in the 90s? No, but it's still pretty damn good week in and week out.
Well, it's just most of the people aren't, they're saying this, but they're also not watching, or they tuned into one episode, and just like in the old days, a sketch or two were, there's like 1 or 2 solid sketches in that week.
Yeah.
Like it's always been that way.
Hulu is wonderful. If the sketch is really bad, after 2 minutes, this isn't funny, you fast forward it and you move on to the next one.
That's why you watch the 70 episode. Like obviously there's highlights, but an hour and change watching old 1970 Saturday Night Live there's a lot of stuff that you just don't really tune into to be that engaged.
Well, and I grew up watching
past its time. You don't get the relevancy or in the moment stuff.
And I grew up watching reruns on Nick at Night that were 30 minutes a pop. So basically I was getting the best of the best.
Well, 30 minutes, or the E had hour episodes too, of other things as well. But like, yeah, it's always been that way. And it's just like the comedy has evolved. It's different now. You got to get on its wavelength. Yeah, it's so funny when people say that. I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like
some years are good, some years are bad. Some episodes are good, some episodes are bad, etc., etc.
Sometimes they have
that we not named. What's the one that we've left out because it's clearly the worst of the bunch?
Of what?
Of the SNL movies.
Oh gosh. Well, I want to be clear that we're not counting Mean Girls in this. We're talking about sketches that became.
Oh yeah, that's not
anything about Mean Girls.
That would be the best by default, but it doesn't count any more than like Pop Star.
Superstars. Whatever.
Oh yeah, that's probably one.
Yeah. There's Coneheads would be followed by Wayne's World 2. Then it's Pat. Then Stewart Saves His Family. Then Blues Brother 2000. Then Night at the Roxbury. Then Superstar. Then Ladies Man. And then a long break until
10 years. Which then bombs, despite getting pretty decent buzz out of the South by Southwest and getting solid reviews. And again, I'm not unsympathetic because I think it's sort of it leads into a broader conversation. Why are there no SNL movies becomes why are there no live action comedies in theaters? And that's a more complicated conversation, although they're trying this year. They really are. And that's hopefully by the time this recording is done, I'll actually finish that damn post. I started like a month ago. It gets triaged for other stuff. But anyway.
Well, here you go. So of the SNL movies, Wayne's World has the highest Rotten Tomatoes score. Blues Brothers has the highest Metacritic score. And Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2 have the highest cinema score at A-.
No, I think there's a genuine quality gap.
What do you think?
And yes, I think in retrospect,
what do you think
you are correct that Coneheads is the best of the rest.
It's Pat.
Pat is 0%.
Easily. No question.
And Night at the Roxbury and Ladies Man are next with 11.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Roxbury's got some moves. That's all I can say. I can't say anything for the others.
Yeah,
Roxbury's good. It's got some moves.
Yeah, MacGruber only had 48% Rotten Tomatoes, 43 Metacritic, and a C- cinema score. You got it wrong, world.
Well, it won because it got a TV series.
That's true. That's true.
That nobody watched
because it's on Peacock. And that produces good things that nobody watches because it's a weirdly advertised network.
It is a weirdly advertised network.
Coming soon, the Netflix sensation, Girls 5 Eva.
So, okay. But yeah, that's a bit of a SNL tangent. We'll go on to a different kind of tangent as we hear Yancy's tales from the video store.
It has more than 109,000 members and 35,000 movie selections.
You come in here and get just about any movie you wanted to, and some you never see someplace else.
Del Mar Video is going out of business, turning off the lights at the store on the city's north side.
The Blu-rays are the first to go. People really like those.
In an everything must go sale.
This is my family's business. It's hard to close a family business.
When Del Mar first opened, it was a hardware and tool rental store. But by the late 80s, the tools were out and the movies were in.
I just want to talk about my favorite. I want to spotlight my favorite. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so not the experience of Los Angeles. But we had this video store that was just a cut above the rest and only closed like 2 years ago, called Del Mar Video. And this was in this. It wasn't like downtown or far away, but my parents would never take me to it. And Del Mar, you had a membership, and the cool thing about the Del Mar Video was you got a card that looked like a driver's license. You got a photo ID. And you went in, and they had everything. So if there was like a special edition thing of something, they had it. They had a huge porn section, of course. And when I turned,
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, they had a huge porn section, of course. But they had like everything, like anything that came out, they had it. So when most video stores, we have Alien already. But like when the collector's edition blue DVD came out, Del Mar had it. Nobody else carried it. Like I could see the director's cut of Aliens finally when that came out there. But when I turned 18 years old, that was the first place I went. And of course, I was also 18, double whammy, I got porn, rented porn. And you can tell exactly what year it was when I turned 20 or turned 18 because of I rented the Blow Bitch Project and Mighty, not appropriate to say, but it was called, I'm quoting the title, The Mighty Midget. Those were the two I rented because I'm a silly bastard, and I was like, whatever. So I got my Del Mar membership and got that. But Del Mar Video,
Chronicles?
Huh? The Blow Bitch Project.
Okay, so Blair Witch Project, but did it attempt to?
No.
Did it attempt to? Was it? No, it was just a name.
It had a card that said this footage was captured from whatever, and just gave them an excuse to shoot it on a camcorder instead of their normal stuff. But.
The only porn I ever saw in full length at that point, I think, was a movie called Foreskin Gump.
Okay.
Which I had to watch. I didn't care about foreskins or anything. I just had to watch it because I wondered how much it would actually retain or try to attempt to follow the plot, and it did. And it just every scene added in that he had a foreskin, the actor playing Forrest Gump, and that would be part of the sex scene. But otherwise, they tried to make it a Forrest Gump parody.
They had one at Del Mar that was never in called Tricks, TRIXXX, and it was like the Matrix. It was never in. But on the back, they had like, the bullet time scene with Keanu going like this, but it was like, it was a money shot thing. But I was like, I want to see how they pull that off. Like, just I have to, but it was never in. So
I'll just say it. I'll just say the best, the cleverest title I ever saw for porn series was Catch Her in the Eye, which is an awful thing to say. But can you believe that someone was clever enough to do a porn series along like 16 volumes called Catch Her in the Eye? Should be writing for like real the National Lampoon or something.
It works this week. All right. Thank you, Yancy. And now on to our main event, Poetic Justice.
One woman. One man. One journey to love. Janet Jackson, Tupac Shakur, Poetic Justice. From the creator of Boys in the Hood, rated R, at theaters July 23rd.
Written and directed by John Singleton, starring Janet Jackson, Tupac Shakur, Regina King, Joe Terry, Candy Alexander, Maya Angelou, and Q-Tip. Grieving hairdresser Justice goes on a road trip from South Central LA to Oakland on a mail truck alongside her friend and a postal worker, which she cannot stand. All right, who wants Poetic Justice first?
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
Go, Aaron.
It's a solid movie. It's a really solid follow up to Boys in the Hood. I like that it's a pivot as far as the genre while still maintaining the voice that Singleton clearly carved out for himself. First Bat Out to get him a Best Director nomination. This movie's like, it's weirdly iconic in its own way, where like it wasn't as strong of a hit as far as Boys in the Hood's an Oscar nominee, but like so is Poetic Justice, actually, come to think of it. But you know what I mean. It's not a movie that's like coming out of nowhere, being like, "Wow, look at this! We've never seen something like this before." White people, and so like, and now you have this movie that has a similar kind of energy as far as here's a guy that's from the hood that's telling you a story that has characters that are associated in some way, but it's then being like, but enough of that. We're gonna throw him into like this romantic odyssey, and I enjoyed that. I've seen this movie a number of times, but I was happy watching it again recently, and I watched it with Singleton's commentary, and rest in peace, John Singleton. But he's such a I've regardless of how much I like some of his movies, especially later on with like Abduction, I find him a fascinating voice. I think he's very much a guy that enjoyed doing what he was doing, regardless of how well his movies came out. I feel like he's a guy that like grew up with filmmakers and just wanted to make movies. And I feel like that spirit's just always maintained in his films. And this one very much shows that as well, where he's trying to say something about, the world around him, but he's also making like an exercise in a romantic film, which is interesting when you have, Tupac Shakur, who's still kind of, he's young in general, but like he's still kind of young in his career, right? He's like just kind of breaking off in his solo thing. He has one album out at this time. And then you have Janet Jackson, who obviously, more, she's in the Billboard top 10 every week at this point.
Yeah.
I like their energy together. You have younger Regina King in here, who she's great as well. Like, there's a lot of just like, for a movie like this, I like the journey that it takes. I like that it's very character specific. I like that it feels like a director that's making choices and putting this kind of thing together. Obviously, it has good music and all that. Like, there's without saying. But yeah, it's a solid like character romantic comedy mixed with a little bit of drama that kind of reflects the times. I quite like this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that it was very slice of life, while also having characters that I felt were very specific and sketched in, and often sometimes quote unquote unsympathetic. Yeah. There's a scene where Tupac acts like, frankly, a raging asshole to Janet Jackson, but that's okay because it's a character study and these characters are allowed to be flawed and complicated. I enjoyed the fact that it's weird. Janet Jackson is a perfectly good actress, despite the Razzie Award that she won for this film, because Razzies are kind of racist.
Razzies are awful. It's like, this movie really like single this out?
Yeah.
But most desirable TV movie awards that year, so it evens out. But the weird thing is, for whatever reason, a ton of movies, but she seems to have, the situation where she might have been a movie star if she had worked more. Yeah. And by that, this film opened well. And then the first film she does for Tyler Perry, Why Did I Get Married? And it's an ensemble cast, but she's, I would say, by far the biggest name in the cast. It opens like $25 million. And yes, a lot of Perry's movies are opening that well at that point, but she clearly was a butts and seats draw.
Yeah, she's not hurting a movie when she's in it.
Right.
That's why that's why the Clumps really needed Janet Jackson to be a bigger success.
Yeah, I forgot she was in that. God, but yes, and yeah, it's this feels very much like and again, stupid comparison, so forgive me in advance, but the way that Spike Lee followed up Malcolm X, this big and towering picture, with something very, very much smaller and intimate that was Crooklyn. Yeah. And it also felt, to a certain extent, John Singleton saying, look, I can do more than just a stereotypical, Guns in the Hood type, melodrama. And while this certainly deals with some of those issues, because you almost can't not in that day and age, and maybe in this day and age, it also feels like a very specific yet universal romantic melodrama that, in this case, happens to be centered around a Black woman. And in terms of, not to be patronizing here, but giving underrepresented demographics their time in the spotlight, giving them the kind of movie that white actors took for granted. And it just reminds me that, I pretty much like every John Singleton movie except for Abduction. I mean, I have issues with Four Brothers. That's more just,
Four Brothers rocks.
as a genre pictures, it's excellent. I
don't know if you know this, Brandon. It's also secretly a Western.
It is secretly a Western.
Secretly, yes. Is it a remake of a John Wayne picture?
I mean, it's taken a lot of elements from a couple of different things, but it very much has the movie ends with Mark Wahlberg walking out in the snow.
Oh yeah.
By himself,
and that and Shaft are what made me think that for a time John Singleton probably did the best shootouts of any Hollywood American director.
Yeah, he has really cool.
His Shaft is really good. Like that's an overlooked movie. Like
I mean that's one of those movies that it got decent reviews in its time and it was a solid success, but by today's standards it fucking would have been a best picture runner-up or front runner. Just because it's so naughty and complicated and just the cast is just ridiculous.
He was using Toni Collette before it was cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like Tony, right off The Sixth Sense, Toni Collette comes in and just gives an Oscar-worthy performance just because.
Well, her, Jeffrey Wright, and Christian Bale all do it.
Yes, that was back in this weird time where Christian Bale got his seeds cut so that Jeffrey Wright could get a spotlight.
Yeah. I'll go to Too Fast, Too Furious. He's a black director making live action anime. That's not a thing you get very often at all.
And I'm sure I mentioned this before, but when I went back and rewatched all the Fast and Furious films before Part 9, that was the one that sort of grew in esteem for me.
It does, because once you realize everybody's aware of what's going. The first time you see it, you're like, man, this is kind of stupid. Then you realize, oh wait, they all know what they're very aware of what's going on here.
Yeah, no, it's by default. I mean, again, I think you've got F5, F7, and then everything else. But I think F2 Too Fast, Too Furious is one of the best of everything else. To use a statement we just used 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his filmography, and other than Abduction, there's not a bum not a bum picture here.
I really
like even Abduction, which is not a good movie, but I remember it opened in the same weekend as The Killer Elite, which was a big mega budget Jason Statham, Clive Owen, Robert De Niro picture where Abduction had better action.
Brandon, what did you think of this movie?
Oh yeah, I like this movie. I love John Singleton. He's a guy I like hearing talk about movies because he's got a real eye for talent and movie geekness that. I think some people looking at his films might take for granted or something, because I went back on the Blu-ray, watched the bonus features and stuff for him to talk about oh man, Tupac was going to be my De Niro. We were going to do all these things, and him having the idea I need a hit. My next movie, Janet hasn't been in a movie before. And I know she wants to act. If I have her first movie, I have a hit no matter if my movie's well reviewed or not. She was his safeguard for it, and that's someone really who's a fan of movies, knows how movies work, really putting together even as his second film or whatever. This is a fun little road trip romantic comedy. I don't think a lot of black movies were being done like this at this time. This was why can't we have these romantic comedies like this and stuff like that? And he's really normalizing black movies with this. I think is what he's doing. He's not
stepping stone until when we get to later in the 90s, when you get the Queen Latifah and Jada Pinkett movies that start coming out, Jamie Foxx movie, this is a bridge to that, which I appreciate.
This is the all-timer scene, Tupac's first scene where they're at the counter and she harasses him. It gives him his harassment back, oh, the Poonan, do you hear that? He wants to give and he's embarrassed. And I think he wanted Ice Cube for this.
Yeah.
This isn't very, I'm not I like Ice Cube, but it doesn't work with him.
Cube said no also. He realized that too. This is not a thing that
Tupac is he's convincing as gentle and sensitive in a way that this guy was not in real life, apparently.
Yeah. Which is very impressive when you watch Juice and you watch this, because he's scary in that movie. He's scary and charismatic. And this, he's sensitive and charismatic. The guy had rage. Mm-hmm. It's upsetting that all these things happen, because there's an interesting career that could have happened.
Well, Singleton said, I told him straight to his face, you're a better you're not as good at rap as you think you are. You're a much better actor. You should drop the music thing." Tupac's like, "F you, man."
He can convincingly play an underdog in a role like this that I don't think
Yeah.
Ice Cube could have at that point, or certainly not now because he's
Cube
old.
has an authority to him.
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
like,
There's like it's
Yeah.
too much command in Ice Cube that he just
Tupac is
can't
smaller.
shake. Yeah.
He can play smaller at least. Like you're not going to see Ice Cube playing like the guy in glasses sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you can dress Tupac up to look kind of pretty too, so you can kind of get that he's not like effeminate, but like you could buy the guy with the softer side. He wouldn't have to be this like hard ass. He could be scary, or you could want to give him a hug. Like that's
Yeah,
the kind of things the kind of range he has.
And it's a simplistic comparison, but it's Keanu Reeves in the idea that he could play a certain puppyish innocence.
Yeah. Well, I also I think Janet's good in this, and I love the scene where she takes Regina Hall drunk out the back of the truck. It's like, listen, asshole, like it like tells her off, like, and and it's like on the side of her like boyfriend and stuff that you'd normally see in a movie where it's like, oh, sisters stay together, and that guy would have had to fuck up somehow. I like she goes from Q-Tip to Tupac. That's kind of a interesting thing with it, and it's funny.
Quest fan, so I felt bad.
Yeah, the opening scene is just like it almost feels like it's there to be like, yeah, this is the guy who did Boys in the Hood coming over here to do this movie, but it's nothing like that really. Kind of the rest of the way. And
we didn't even talk about the real opening. The opening with the fake movie that stars. That stars Billy Zane and Lori Petty.
Lori's back.
Having not seen this in a very long time, I watched it on Tubi, and when that scene showed up, I thought, did they have the wrong movie? Because this is Tubi, so it could be some 1990s direct-to-video Treat Williams action movie that I've never heard of that happens to be called Poetic Justice.
yeah, it was funny. Yeah, Lori Petty, Billy Zane, like, wait, what? Oh yeah, they're at a drive-in. I will say, to touch it back to summer of '82 at 40, it reminded me in a way of an Officer and a Gentleman, because it had a score that slowly hinted and built up to a hit song that didn't play till the end. Janet Jackson's again is woven into the score of that movie. Thematically,
Which gets nominated.
Yeah, which gets nominated. So thematically, I don't know about Officer or Gentleman, but that's where it reminded me of that. With
You're not quite. I mean, like they're obviously not one and one, but there's like there's threads there I can see.
Yeah, but it's mainly the score part of it. But yeah, no, this is a solid, like rock solid movie, and it does well, from what I remember. But yeah, no, Singleton, he's rock solid. He's really good. He's rock solid. He knows what he does. I don't know how, like, he starts getting into like TV and stuff, but like
I'll say this right now: the show Snowfall that he created, that he passed away before. I mean, it's still like at the time of this recording, there's like 2 episodes left of Snowfall. It's terrific. It's a terrific show that very much deals with stuff that he wanted to bring into the public consciousness, as far as what's going on in the hood and why. It's a really solid show. It's another FX show that seemingly got under the radar. It's not quite like The Americans, which seem to get like at least more recognition from the Emmys, but it's a really good show, and I'm happy that every week when it ends, it says created by John Singleton, because he's a strong hand in why this show exists, and the fact that it was able to be on for like 5 seasons, while not, I assume, not getting stellar ratings, is a testament to, I think, what kind of quality he can be associated with, and like what kind of people he wants to work with that get results.
Yeah. David Banks, who's doing a couple of the music video episodes for summer of '93 at 30, as always, he referred to John Singleton, like, well, we talked about him when he passed away, and he was like, he's like, man, that man made the highest echelon hood classics of all time. Like, so he considered it, talked about with him, like, but yeah, I do miss John Singleton. It was really just sad when he passed away.
Yeah,
like I was
like a brain tumor or something like that.
Yeah, it was like he was alive. He had a stroke, and then it was like later that week he passed away. It was like, oh gee, like it was like, oh, he had a stroke. Oh, that sucks. It's like, no, it was a really bad stroke. It's like, yeah, he's gonna be brain dead if he survives, and then pass away. Like it was really, yeah. At least I know him and like Sam Jackson got into it on the final cut of Shaft, and that's kind of why things went away, but which kind of sucks. But that's the only like negative thing I've really heard about him throughout his years. But no, this Poetic, go back and watch Poetic Justice. It's a charming little movie. It's really good. It's kind of like, I don't know, how many road trip romance movies do we have? Like, there's like Rob Reiner's got that one.
I mean, there's
Sure
a lot.
Thing,
Yeah,
there are. I guess there are a lot.
But in terms of like this, it's a specific kind of film. Like it's a black film that I can name plenty of road trip romantic comedies. I can't name too many black road trip romantic comedies.
But this is one that that's why it would stand out, and that's why it's. I mean, it is one of the best, regardless of that. I would say.
I'd watch a Black It Happen One Night.
There you go. Yeah, of course.
Give me
Make that. Okay. Scott, how did Poetic Justice and the rest of these do at the box office this week?
Poetic Justice debuted at #1 at the domestic box office with $11.73 million. Again, John Singleton was a marquee director, and Janet Jackson was a butts and seats movie star. The film would eventually go on to make $27.5 million domestic. I'm not seeing the global on the numbers, so let me do Wiki really quick. Because inexplicably, no, it's 27.5 total on a 14 budget, which is fine. I mean, it probably did very well on home video and HBO and all that jazz. In the line, excuse me, in the line of fire, in second place. This is a film that debuted in third place, by the way, I think, behind Jurassic Park and The Firm 3 weeks ago. Now it's in second place with 11.2 million, dropping just 14%, still adding screens in its third weekend, now up to 2,129 screens. It had $54.1 million in 17 days. It would, of course, eventually make $187 million worldwide. And The Firm.
Really close 1, 2, 3 race this week.
Yeah. The Firm going from #1 to #3, but still doing very well. Thank you very much. $10 million in 2,400 theaters, dropping just 25%.
There's
for
that
a
crossover appeal with Wilder Napalm right there. Like, oh, we can't see The Firm. Wilder Napalm's out.
No, it's not out yet. Wilder Napalm comes out in a couple weeks.
We're gonna go line up for Wilder Napalm, so we can't see The Firm this week. We got to stay in line.
Yes. It would eventually earn 270 million worldwide. Free Willy adds 461 screens for a 1,937 screen total and jumps 10% in its second weekend of release, earning $8.6 million for a $22 million or $22.6 million total. It would eventually earn 154 million worldwide. And then, of course, our next opener, Coneheads, opening to a slightly disappointing $27.1 million and 1,978 screens. It would eventually earn around $21 million on a 30 budget.
Oh,
that's a bomb.
One thing about Coneheads, it introduced me to Tainted Love, the song.
Oh, really?
Fair.
Yeah, that movie introduced me to that song.
Oh, Valley Girl? No, Coneheads.
Yeah, I didn't see Valley Girl at that time, but I saw Coneheads.
I was thinking Melt With You. That's Valley Girl.
That's
what,
yeah.
In that one too. I don't know. Might have been.
But I didn't know Tainted Love.
Oh, gotcha.
Except for because of that movie, and not only like do the kids play it, but then he sings it to the fucking rock and around thing at the end. As a distraction method, which
that movie had like Conehead's actual recorded songs in character in the credits. It was weird.
Anyway, no, I'm kidding. In seventh place, we had Sleepless in Seattle, still holding strong, dropping just 22% in its fifth weekend for a $5.75 million weekend for an $82 million 10-day total. It would eventually earn a whopping $228 million worldwide. But remember, kids, romantic comedies are box office poison. Speaking of box office poison, Hocus fucking Pocus dropped another 32% in its second weekend, which is an okay hold, just didn't open very well. So it only made $5.5 million in its second weekend for an $18.7 million 10-day total, for eventually earning $45 million worldwide on a 38 budget.
How many streaming subscriptions would that equate in today's language?
5! Anyway, another Stakeout. Walt Disney also, ironically, back when they made, other movies. Another Stakeout earned $5.4 million, which was a disappointing result, even though it only opened on 1,185 screens, which something I brought this up last week, and I think it's worth repeating. We were still in a situation where there were only, a quote unquote limited number of total theaters available in the country. So if you had a crowded summer slate, some of these films might not open on a gajillion theaters. Even Poetic Justice only opened on 1,273 screens. Which means, by the way, sky high 9,213 per screen average. Another Stakeout 5.4. It would eventually earn just $20 million. There would be no I'll always know what you staked out.
Because the first one made like 65, right?
Yes, it made about as much as Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, well, that's why they made a sequel.
Domestically. Which, by the way, I was incorrect. Lethal Weapon came out in March of 87, while the first Stakeout came out in August of 87.
They where the summer bucks were coming from. Estevez and Dreyfus.
Clearly. And finally, in 10th place, Rookie of the Year. Adding one theater.
Good.
One theater.
I want to take
a moment. Very funny.
I want to take a moment and capture this top 10 list as we have Tobin Bell, Lori Petty, Gary Busey, and Rosie O'Donnell all in 2 movies each in the top 10. Tobin Bell is kicking ass up there in the top. But yeah, they're all each have multiple movies in the top 10.
As it should be.
Yes.
As it should be. Yeah.
Rookie of the Year made $4.5 million on weekend 3, dropping 32% in 1,544 theaters for an eventual domestic total of $53.5 million. That film stuck around for a while. And that's all for the top 10.
All right. Well, appreciate that. Well, thank you guys again. That was the week that was July 23rd through 25th of 1993. Scott and Aaron. Before we head out, where can people keep up with you, Aaron?
Everything I do ends up on my personal blog, thecodeiszeek.com. I write for Leave Entertainment for movie reviews, and I write for Wise is Blue for Blu-ray and Criterion reviews. I host a podcast, Out Now with Aaron today, with my friend Abe. We talk about the weekly movie releases. And I am on Twitter at Aaron's PS4. Still legacy verified.
All right. Aaron pays for Twitter. All right.
Don't spread these rumors.
Scott.
Hey, Twitter Blue is a fucking edit function. I'd pay for it if it wasn't considered sacrilegious now. Anyway. I'm at therap.com and at Twitter, unpaid, and at scottmendelson.com or at Scott Mendelson.
All right, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHG, written work at wiseblue.com. Next week, Tom and Jerry Save Cinemas again. The sun rises, the tights rises, and the axe rises. So yeah,
this is another weekend where probably people have heard of or seen all 4 of these films.
There you go. All that and more as the summer of 93 at 30 continues.
It's the summer of 93 at 30.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. The Summer of and News Themes by Press Maxon. Additional information on this and other episodes at thebrandonpetershow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at thebrandonpetershow.com. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.